Hello class, I'm Mr. Isbell and I'm joining you guys again for another tutorial on how to use the Wireshark that we have previously talked about in class. I wanted to kind of clear a little things up and show you the usefulness of this tool with some very good examples, how to make some expressions that we're going to do to be able to filter out some of the content. So let's go ahead and get started. So anytime that you want to be able to analyze a network, or you want to be able to look at the IP address or track where to and from, say for example port 80, for example port 21, port 110. You can pretty much locate just about anything you can on ports. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know or not, but we, on the internet, at least the last time I checked, you could have anywhere between 1 to 64,000 different ports. Well, that makes it pretty hard to be able to track things down. So basically, anybody could change a port from its standard port to something that's in that 60,000, range. But the most common ones that you guys, I definitely think you should learn is port 53, port 21, port 80, port 110, port 443, and port 880. I mean, these are kind of standard out there about logging into networks. One is DNS, 53 is DNS, 21 is FTP, 110 is POP. Oh, also let's add another one. Port 25 is SMTP, which is Mail Transfer Protocol, and port 110, like I said, is POP. 880 is generally used for connecting to some of the secured ports on the internet to a router. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is that particular port. But some people tend to change it to whatever you want, and you can pretty much change the port when you're trying to modify something to keep somebody from breaking into the system, if that makes any sense. Because sometimes what will happen is people know the common port numbers and they'll leave them at default. Like, for example, say the Linksys that we were programming, the Linksys router we were programming in class. It could be the fact that somebody left the default port to do remote administration on it, and it just so happens to be well known for those Linksys routers to be port 880. And so all I need to do is find your IP address in, type in colon, and 880, and I'm in. So just kind of give you an example of that. If I was going to log on the website here, let me turn on the notepad. Let's bring it up here in the display, in my record display here, so you guys can see it. No problem. So in other words, what I'm saying is that, say if I was logging on and I found my router, and some of them you'll notice this was in class, I would type in my web browser something like this. For example, like what we did in class, and here's how I communicate to another port other than the standard port. So I would type in that address like that, and some people can change these, but basically what this is this is helping you with a little bit of security, so you're not doing the default ports. As I talked about, port 21 being FTP, port 25 being SMTP, 53, whoops, 53. If I'm correct there, I'm a little iffy on that one. Port 80 being HTTP, and 110 is POP 3. 444, whoops, 443. HTTPS, and let's see, I did mention 880. It kind of depends. It could be remote port, but it does change. That's not set in stone for that one. But those other ones that I listed up there, they're the standard ones. They're the ones that you should be familiar with. The book does talk about a few different ones on there, but I think that this is probably the best that you need to for getting a job. and knowing what it is when you're troubleshooting something and you're trying to secure it on the network. These are some of the ones that you really want to point out. Now there are more, and I will talk about more, but these are the main ones that you should know, regardless of what are the other ones are or not. These are pretty much the main standard ones. All right. So since now I showed you that, kind of give you a little bit of overview, let's go ahead and close this down. And what I want to do here is I want to be able to show you guys how to use this tool. The Wireshark is a real troubleshooting tool. And to do that, we want to start off with, if you'll notice, we'll go to Capture, and let's go to Interfaces. And it looks like it's taking a little bit of time to come up on mine. Could be the fact that I am recording. So, hold on a moment. Alright, there it is. Now, to start my packet capturing, what I want to do is I want to click on Start. So that's going to start capturing the packets on there. So we'll go ahead and click Start on that, and it looks like it's going a little bit slow because I'm running a recorder. There we go. Okay, so we can see some packets coming in. This happens to be my computer here. This is not at the office. I'm sorry, not at the school, but I am doing this tutorial outside of the school because I figured you guys desperately needed this, so this is going to enlighten you a little bit. Now, looks like I have some connections already out on the internet that are connecting already. And it's really strange because the only thing that I'm running is this program called Camtasm Studio. And apparently, this program is logging out there on the internet, which to my amazement is definitely an amazing thing because they never said that it's logging on the internet, but I can look at some of these IP addresses here and I can see, if you look over here to the right, I see an IP address that says 170.51.24.203. This looks like something's calling out to my machine, which is very interesting just because of this Camtasia Studio, which is a recording software, is doing this. But let's go ahead and let's go on the web. Let me go to Start here, and I'm going to open up a web browser here just a second. Let's bring it up. Now this packet analyzer is making my computer run pretty slow, so just bear with me on this. Alright, bringing up the internet here. Alright, as you can see, I had to resize it here a little bit so it'll fit on there. So if you look at this, I'm going to go ahead and go to a web page. I did go to Google. Some of you may like to go to Facebook. You can go wherever you want. I wouldn't worry about putting a blank page in there. It's not necessary. So I'm going to Facebook. Okay. Give it a second. Like I said, it is running slow on this older computer that I'm doing this on. And what that's doing is it's still capturing those packets on here. And you can see it logged into the first page. Alright, let's go ahead and go to another one. And we're going to Yahoo here. Let's bring it up. It's loading. And it's just what I'm doing here is I'm just going to different websites while it's doing the while it's doing the packet capturing. That's a tongue twister. You have to have it on and go to these websites so that it can reveal that information. If you notice in the background there to the left, see the green coming up? It's capturing IP addresses. I see other ones. My main one, though, is 192.168.195. That's my IP address. But the other ones you see there are what's communicating are the sites that I'm logging into. And I see that they're changing on there. So let's go ahead and close this down now, since that's probably enough websites that I went to. I went to Facebook and Yahoo. I'm going to turn off the interface now. I'm going to actually stop the packet capturing. And it's going to take a moment here because I'm running again because I am running this video recorder. It takes a little while for that to come up, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it. And just waiting for it. Alright, and it stopped. Now let's go ahead and close this. Alright, so now we want to be able to reveal, or at least to be able to track or kind of take a look at what we have. So if we wanted to track a particular IP address, so say we found out that your friend that's sitting next to you, or your student, I'm sorry, your classmate is sitting next to you, and you want to track down their IP address in this list. So we want to use what's called an expression. If you notice that here's the expression tab here, yes, when you click on that, you'll notice that it has quite a list on there. So let's try to break it down in a little bit simpler form into more of a usable tool that you guys could actually help on repairing a network or tracking something down. So let's do one of the most basic things. Let's track an IP address. I see one on the left, so I'm going to type in IP and then period, ADDR, space, I'm going to put equals, and what I want to do is I want to give it the IP address. So I can see that mine here, now I've looked beforehand. Oh, actually, you know what? I don't know. I noticed that there's a second IP address running on here. So I have one that's 192.168.0.199, but also look on my network here. I have 192.168.0.192. So I actually have another one. I don't know if it's my computer or if it's the other one I have on the network. Let me check here. I'm going to go ahead and open up a command prompt. Hang on just a moment here, and I'll bring it into the display once it fires up. Alright, let me adjust that. Okay. I'm going to do an IP CON FIG. Let's see what it is, what my IP address currently is. Yeah, it's just running a little bit slow because of the packet program, but that's alright. There we go. Alright, look at that. Mine was neither the 192 or the 199. I'm actually 195. So that's interesting because you can see the other traffic on my network, like what you guys will see if you're in a business or if you're at home or you're at a school or you're at a corporation. You can see that there's other people on the network, but specifically I want to find out what mine is. So let's see if mine is in the list. So I'm going to filter by typing in mine, which is 192.168. What is it? It's .0.195. And you notice that if I do this, you notice that you can see that the area around the expression is red. That means that the syntax is incorrect. So you may have a typo in it. So if once I notice when I put the last period on there and I start adding the last number, it turns green because that means it's a correct expression. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that expression by applying. And then now look what I've done here. I've actually brought up all of the IP addresses that start in 195. And now there's some other ones in here apparently that I was communicating, or I've communicated to those websites with those particular ones. You see them right below. So let's find out which one, if they're source or their destination. So let's go ahead and type in a new one here. Let's put in source IP would be, it's SRC. And then let's go over here and move it to the end of this, and let's see which one the sources were when we were communicating. We were going on the internet. This means that what I mean by the source is that when you're clicking on that web page that we opened up, which was Facebook and then Yahoo, this is just going to show where the source was coming from. So we're going to look at that. That's set it up quite well. I see that. Look at that. It's nicely organized. Being the sources, and look at this, you can see straight up here straight where I communicated to. So for example, if you look right here, here's where my computer was talking to it, which is 192.168.0.195, and then here's the IP address right here where it communicated out to. So let's go for where it went as a destination. Let's change that. So we're going to change the expression here. Just modify this part. So I want to go destination is DST for the expression. Let's go to the end of it, and let's apply that one. Let's see how that looks. And then look at that. It made it as the destination. So you can see right here where it says source. Okay, source on the first one there, that very first line you see at the top where it's highlighted in blue, that was my router. My router's set to that. So it was actually, that's the source of where it's going. But when I was talking to him, my computer, which is the destination, if you look right here, here's the destination up here, and you'll see my computer was the 192.168.0.195. This company here, this IP address was sending information back to me on a TCP/IP port. Looks like a sync and an acknowledgement request here. If you look at these over here, you guys are definitely going to have to start reading your book to be able to find out exactly what those are. About, I wouldn't say that they're absolutely pertinent information, but it is good for you guys to know this. At least just know about it. You don't have to know it in absolute detail, but it is something that you should know about, so that if somebody does mention it to you or says, hey, I have a sync, it's SYN, and then ACK request, you know, you kind of got an idea. Oh, you're talking about using it as a packet analyzer, and what are you doing? Troubleshooting something wrong with the network. That's what you'd want to add to that, okay? So if you look over here again, like I said, over here on the source, 74.125.224.147, it says that that IP address was communicating back to me onto the destination of it. So you see how I put in there on my expression, IP.dst equals 192.168.0.95. So that makes it nice. This just makes it a way so that I can track, excuse me, one individual IP address and see where it's going. So if I wanted to track down what was wrong with Edward's computer on the network there in the classroom, if I wanted to track down Tip's computer, I wanted to find out what's going on, or Brian, and I wanted to find out why that they were doing that, or Martin for that matter. What it means is that I can just pick you out of all that, so we can make some kind of sense of what you're seeing on the screen here and use this as a viable tool. So let me show you one more expression on here. Let's change all of this here. And what I want to do is I want to go to TCP, and I want to give it a port. And I want to pick the port. So we have ports here. So now we've established that, you know, we kind of, what I showed you before is, you know, port 21, port 25, port 53, port 80, port 110, port 443. You know, this is what we want to do. So you would track it and you're like, oh, okay, these guys are communicating on this port. Look, I see a port 60 here. You see different ports here on the length as well. So what I want to do is let's give it in. Let's find out how many port 80s we have that have been transmitting on this whole packet scheme. So I type in TCP period PORT space equal space 80 for port 80. Let's apply it. And you'll notice that pretty much that's because I open up that web page, that almost all of these that I've done here, we're communicating on port 80. So let me give you an example how I know that, all right? If I change this and I say, remember I said there was one example of port 110? So watch what happens when I apply this one. Blanks it out. Because it was never communicated on that port. What you guys have to get from this is the fact that, so say for example, on the internet, we find out that there's a virus. That virus has been communicated on port 7124. So example, what I'm saying is, so 7124. I'm looking through my packet scheme. Is there a virus floating around that network? Now I hit enter on it. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to hit the... I guess hitting enter on it makes the apply work automatically. But now I can actually look. Is there a virus floating around on there? And this is how you can have that rapport with finding things that are wrong within the network. So you can actually track down a virus that's trying to talk to something on the network, and you can almost locate where it's coming from. So now you know how to be able to show the port that you're trying to track down by the TCP/IP port. Now, and you can also show what's called the expression. Oh, by the way, once you have put in these expressions, if you click this little arrow down right here, you can see all the ones that I've done, and you could redo them again. So if I was looking for port TCP/IP 21, I can apply that. Still, I have nothing on there. So there was nothing. My entire experience was because I was using Facebook to go to their Facebook page, and I went to Yahoo's page. They're all on port 80, which means that they were websites. So if I hit apply, boom, everything comes back again. So you know that that's what I've been communicating on. This is how you can track down what somebody's doing on the network by just listening in. All right, well, I hope that was informative for you guys. Pretty much, I enjoyed it too. So give me some feedback on it, and make sure you watch this video and you try it out at home as well, and try it in the classroom, and we'll be working through some labs on it. So thank you for joining me again, and this is Mr. Isbell signing out. Thank you.